Warning, the following episode is going to contain hijinks, phenomenal music, and may make you stop your car on the side of the road. In Obscuria.
Welcome back, my friends, to the In Obscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories. That's right, Ronnie James, D.O.G. The lost, the forgotten, and, yes, the should have beens. You are correct. My name, Kevin Williams. That guy over there, Robert Harrison.
He's got it memorized.
He knows exactly what to do.
He's playing along. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, dude, we're done.
Good.
You're good.
Now you can go lay down now.
Yeah, chill.
You may leave.
No.
No, not. All right.
This is not your show anymore.
Hippie.
You just did the beginning.
Hippie. What is his deal? I don't know what it is. He's fired up.
He's fired up.
Usually. He spent all day with me. It's not like he hasn't seen me. We went to Home Depot, I think, 3 times today. He went in Home Depot, which normally doesn't.
Do they care about that?
Nah, there's dogs in there all the time.
Okay, all right.
But I normally don't take them in there with me because I'm loading carts of things and carrying things, and I don't need that
There's a whole lot of shit to pee on in there.
Yes. So the second reason I don't usually take him in there because I have to watch him like a hog. Because if he stops for 2
wood,
seconds,
plants. Yeah. Oh man, there's all sorts of stuff to mark.
Today was paper towels.
Oh no!
Like they have it at the end of the aisle, like this giant stack. And I felt the leash kind of. I was like walking. I felt it stop, and I was like, "Oh God, no! Don't pee on the paper towel." Someone's going to buy that and go, "What the hell?"
I bought this to clean dog piss. Why does it smell like dog piss already?
There was a giant. I don't know what it was. Pit bull, Rottweiler mix. Like it was a beefy dog.
I'd like to see a pit bull Doberman mix.
It was just a big ass dog that I didn't want to get near. So we're walking past and I'm holding this leash going, okay, just be cool, man. Because you don't want to start shit with this dog. I guarantee you do not want to start
Bad idea.
But he walked past and just did the, what's up? Kept walking. I was like, oh man,
all
good
right.
dog.
Snoop.
Yeah, that's what, I like that. He looked at him. He kind of just went, what's up? I was like, okay, whew, no dog fights in the middle of the paint department. I don't need that tonight.
Yeah, that's good. What else is going on with you?
Oh, it's that fun time, end of the year time.
How was your Thanksgiving? Was it yummy?
I'm stuffed still.
Are you?
Yeah, leftovers for days.
I apparently didn't eat enough because I don't feel as full as I normally do.
Really? Was the healthy turkey like air infused this time?
No, it was just not the same number of people at the house. So
yeah,
there was no in-laws pushing food down my throat.
Just the immediate family,
right?
Yeah, so my family's at the point where we shrank down to just my immediate family, and then the nephews are getting older now. One of them's married, and one of them has a girlfriend that shows up, and now it's starting to grow. And I rented the Airbnb across the street to actually have more room, even though my house is a behemoth of a house. The firehouse has, I think, 4 bedrooms plus a basement, and we filled them all up.
Did you make everyone slide down the pole before they could eat?
I don't have to make them. Oh no,
okay,
that's a special request.
That's the only way you can get to the dinner table.
Exactly. We put the table right there at the bottom of the pole, so you kind of have to exit right there. Although my mother, my 80-something-year-old mother,
she landed in the sweet potato souffle.
We encourage her to just take the stairs. I don't need that.
Hopefully you don't even put her on the stairs. But
I'm not going to carry her. She's fine.
You don't have one of those little seats?
No, that's for me.
Oh.
When I get older.
You definitely will have one of those.
When one of my nephews comes and takes over the firehouse.
But you'll have like a jet engine on it.
It'll be gas.
Oh, okay.
You can hear me crank it up. Yeah. Here comes crazy Uncle Robert. Oh, God. You can hear him coming a mile away.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got a concert. I think the concert's next week.
Nice.
I don't even know the bands, but I just said yes.
Hootie and the Blowfish?
It's probably
something like that.
Something like that. The show with a tour bus.
Make sure I won't see it.
If Hootie and the Blowfish played my house, you would come over and see that.
No, probably not.
You would.
Oh, I would not.
For the experience. Yeah, just for the experience.
I saw Hootie last year. Well, I saw him.
Yeah. Was he doing his Burger King covers?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what he was doing.
Weird cowboy.
He was doing the cowboy.
Eating pudding.
What the hell did you just say?
Yeah. Eating pudding.
Sorry, this is South Park reference.
Oh, man. Well, Anything else from you before we get in? We got stuff to do.
No, let's get right
this
into
week.
it.
All right, let's get into it.
We don't need to stall.
Let's do that. But before you do anything else, go listen to Pot of Thunder, Cobras and Fire, Growing Up Rock, Slamfest Podcast, Decibel Geek, A to Z Radio, Metal Up Your Podcast, The Hustle, Disciples of the Watch, Podcast Rock City, Sean Geek and Fast Fret Podcast, State of Amorica, Rock Strikes 10, Potter Than Hell, Shout It Out Loudcast, The Kiss Room, Ages of Rock, Retro Zest Podcast, and Dude. Forget about Monty.
Hey, this is Monty Colvin from Galactic Cowboys and Monty's Rockcast, and you are listening to the amazing In Obscuria podcast. Rock on!
Monty's Rockcast. Come visit us, inobscuria.com. Like us, share us, Facebook, X, Instagram. X for a little bit longer. I saw Cobras and Fire are no longer on X. They're all dropping.
Well, I'm glad to have never been on there to start with, so I can't rage
We
quit.
may not be on much longer either, because all I do is get still political stuff that I don't want. I don't know why I'm getting
Where's everybody going?
I don't know, Blue Sky, somewhere like that.
Telegrams? Mm-hmm. Carrier pigeons?
Something like that.
I'm joining that.
I don't know. That sounds more
Whatever
my speed.
analog network there is, just you have to plug a cord into it. I'm going to join that one.
Right. Okay, well, before we get going today, like I said, packed agenda.
What the hell you say?
Black Virginia.
Packed agenda. Let me try that again.
That's what she said.
Tongue twister. That's what she said also. It's officially the start of the holiday Christmas season. And our listeners, they let us know how much they enjoyed Halloween. Mm-hmm. They loved the treat segment. So this year, sorry to say, but we got to do it. This year, we are extending this to our Christmas celebration.
There goes my diabetes. Depressing. Okay, there we go. There we go.
Captain Crunch.
Christmas Crunch has 6 crunchy new shapes, like bikes, trains, stars, even Christmas trees.
We did it.
Yummy fruity pebbles in our bowls. Oh, here comes you know who. Yabba dabba fruit, delicious stew.
Oh boy, a big bowl of tricks.
A delicious part of this could be breakfast. One bite of those fruity basket-colored puffs and I'll really be jolly.
God damn, but there's a lot of layers to that sound. That hurt.
Yeah. No, yeah, okay. Do you understand what we're doing, though?
Yes.
You get the gist of what we're doing here.
Ruining my health.
Yes, we are. We are going to get in the Christmas cereal tradition here.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we cannot use our Viking mugs. We use those Viking mugs the rest of the year, but it's Christmas time,
yes.
So we need to do this celebration with the beloved character that everyone thinks about during this season. So I give you, sir, Krampus mugs.
Krampus mugs. Dang.
Yes, we each got our own Krampus mug.
This is fantastic. So for those of you at home, and it has the handle as a horn, but not a Viking horn. It's a kind of a curly-Q overgrown
It's
horn.
the Krampus, the goat, demon goat of Christmas.
And
do you know the story of Krampus? You know what this is about?
So when a woman has her...
You are a sexist pig.
No, I'm not going to say that. I did not say that.
Okay.
That wasn't me. No, I have seen several horror films.
Yes.
Horror film. No, I've seen horror
You've seen
films.
horror films.
Yeah, I've seen those too.
Yeah.
But specifically talking about the horror films that have some type of Santa Claus as the main character that goes around and kills little kids.
Well, so
it's terrible.
Saint Nick is like the one who awards the kids for being good.
Oh, and Krampus
is the one that the kids that are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Krampus is
Takes
the one
a stick to them.
Basically, hits them with sticks.
He does not spare the rod.
And scares the shit out of them.
They need it. They deserve it. All kids kids at some point.
And then eats them or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, about half of them deserve that, but I think most of them at some point, you got to whack them with a stick.
So let's get to our Christmas-themed cereal. We will be giving none of the cereals that were in the ads that we played. Those were all from back in the day, the Cap'n Crunch, the Fruity Pebbles,
they don't have
the
that
Tricks.
anymore.
Well, they do, but...
Well, the Tricks, you know who the Tricks are for?
They're for the kids, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's
they're not for us.
We're grown-ass men.
No, what we need to be eating is this. The Elf on the Shelf.
Oh, God. No.
Hot cocoa cereal with marshmallows. Here we go. Just for us.
One of the
Elf on the Shelf.
59 and a half reasons why I'm glad I don't have kids is have to do with it. Because did you have to do that?
No, we didn't do that in our
Good
house.
for you. That's
no, we said no to that shit.
Yeah, there's enough going on.
Yeah.
You got to come up with cutesy little things for the elf to do.
Yeah, so basically people buy these little elves. Somebody came up with this great idea.
Yeah.
They sold this little elf toy
or something.
And then you have to put it places every day until Christmas.
Like, and create these backstories for it. Like, you need a marketing consultant just to do that. And in the middle of packing. And
all right, get some... this is cocoa.
I am Krampus right now.
All right, Krampus.
Grumpus.
All right, so let's see here what we got.
These are chocolatey.
Yeah, it's cocoa. It's cocoa with marshmallows to go with the Christmas season, you see.
Taking back what I said about
all right, let's... Sniff is good. It's very chocolatey smelling. We'll see how we do.
Wow. Not a deep chocolate. It's light chocolate.
No, sir. I don't like it.
You don't like it?
He got away.
It's kind of there. It doesn't really go anywhere. Ooh, no. Aftertaste. Oh, boy.
I got one marshmallow in my pour. One little marshmallow.
You know, I'm digging.
It's very tiny.
I'm still digging.
They stupid elves.
Whoa, they played a prank. I have no marshmallows.
All right. Well, okay. I'm not overly impressed with the Elf on the Shelf cereal.
Let's see what Gio thinks.
He'll eat it. He'll eat anything, but he licks his own ass.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, we'll see how the rest of the season goes so far. I'm not so sure.
That's very cardboardy.
Well, yeah. Who makes that? Is there is it like a name brand or just some weird
Family Size? Is made by Family Size.
It's not Kellogg or General Mills or somebody.
I don't think any of them are claiming this.
Okay. Nobody wanted to put their name on it.
And it says at the very bottom, cereal.
Oh, good.
In case you weren't sure.
Good. I'm glad. Not a toy.
Cereal. Yeah.
Okay, well, Elf on the Shelf. We'll see where it ranks at the end of the season here, but
yeah, it's going to go back on the. Oh, here we go. Kellogg's. It is Kellogg's.
Okay, we'll put it back on the shelf.
They put it in fine print.
Yes,
I had to look
very
for
tiny.
It. They were not.
They don't really want to.
Yeah,
we don't want to associate ourselves with this bullshit. Okay, well, we got to move on.
Yes,
we got to move on. Okay, Robert. Well, let's get going on this. So, since it is the Christmas season, I thought maybe we should find out what list we're on this year, if you know what I mean. Maybe we're naughty, maybe we're nice.
Oh, I have no question about that. But
no.
you, sir, are
I need to know.
Outstanding citizen of this community and a beloved father and husband.
Keep it coming.
You are on the good list for sure.
Yes, we will manifest that. So we need to know. So I think Santa maybe, depending on where we're sitting, we can know if we need to clean up the last few episodes of the year because maybe that'll get us.
Yeah, you can make up time. At the
exactly.
End of the year.
I think that's what you do.
Pour it on.
Make it up. So maybe we're dickheads, maybe we're not. I don't know.
Maybe.
Okay, so here's what I heard. I heard that all you have to do, this came from my kid, so if it comes from a kid, it's got to be real. All you have to do is dial Santa on your phone, and you can actually check.
Oh, it's like they've put it online now.
Yeah, it's online, so you can check and see what your status is.
It's like you check your bank account.
It's like a bank account balance.
Yeah. So we're in the 90s.
Right. We'll see where we are. Exactly. So I'm just going to do a little dialing here, and let's just see where we are, yeah? All right. Here we go. Getting something.
Thank you for calling Movie Phone.
Oh. Jesus.
I don't think that's the right number. Get your lines crossed there.
I'm not sure. Hello? North Pole?
Knights in Satan's service. Jason speaking. Hail Satan. How may I help you?
Uh-oh.
I don't think that's not, I thought I was dialing Santa.
It's a common mistake, actually. You added an extra digit. Let me guess, a heavy metal guy?
Yeah.
It's muscle memory with you guys. Very common. You should try dialing that again with the N at the end of it. Have a horrible day.
Oh,
wait.
Oh, okay. I put the. Oh, I see what I put the N. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Wait, you said your name was Jason?
Yeah.
Bakko?
Sounds
Kevin.
Yeah. Hey, it's Bakko.
Wow.
What are you? Why are you answering Satan's helpline, dude?
Well, it's Christmas time. Need to make a little extra cash. You know, the podcast overlords don't pay that much during the holidays. A little extra cash, you know.
It's a work at home opportunity too, I bet.
Robert's on as well.
It is, yes. We get to work from home, yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, Robert.
How you doing?
Good to hear from you again.
Well, I tell you what, Bakko, since we have you on the line and Robert's here, do you want to just do that thing we've been talking about doing for a while now?
Yeah, sure. This is the only call I've gotten all day anyway. This job sucks.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this then. So we've talked about this, the three of us. We're going to make it happen. It is episode 259, Grave Mistake, HÜSKER DÜ. Should have been huge.
HÜSKER
DÜ. Featuring Bakko from Cobras and Fire. Oh, my God. We got him on.
Hello, everybody.
We got him on. How have you been, man?
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
I've been doing good. How about you guys? Robert, what's up?
You know, I have just been actually working, staying out of trouble. So I have nothing interesting to say. I've just been working. I guess that's the thing to do this time of year.
But you are taking some time off.
I've been thinking about trying this new cereal called Elf on the Shelf. Have you had it?
It's poo in a shoe. It's more like the taste of it.
Yeah. I don't recommend that. Don't do that.
I'll save you the pity on that.
Well, we're going to get into some Minnesota music today, and so why not have Bakko on with us? And we'll get more into that. But, before we go any further, we do have to get our official In Obscuria approval from our diabolical duo. So let's find out if Captain Content and the Mighty K approve this band, and if they approve Bakko, if they approve you participating in this episode. Let's find out.
Captain Content.
First, I didn't get any good drugs. What the hell did you say? I'm not a fan of boy band metal. It makes me want to pull my eyelashes out. Well, you can't like everything. Holy shit. Oh my God. I definitely have to be in the mood for it. But they are a really good band. I could fall in love with an obscure band so easily. Now there's two dickheads on the show. A bunch of wankers. I still love the sound of his voice. True gentleman right there. I love his show. And so this is going to be a good episode. But I'm excited for this episode. All right, listen to you three knuckleheads. Bye.
Okay. I think she came around to listening to HÜSKER DÜ, and I think she came around to saying that she likes you, Bakko. So I think we're good.
Yeah, I could not make any of that out, so I'll take your word for it.
Translate.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
All right. Well, let's get into
someone gave her drugs.
Yeah, somebody gave her
Eventually.
drugs. You heard that. All right. Let's get into
I had to send her an envelope.
Let's get into some HÜSKER DÜ in here. So just a little update on who HÜSKER DÜ is, and then we're going to get into Bakko a little bit here. But HÜSKER DÜ, an American punk rock band formed in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1979, punk rock power trio consisting of guitarist, vocalist Bob Mould, bassist Greg Norton, and drummer, vocalist Grant Hart. They had two vocalists in the band, and we will be featuring that today. Primarily a hardcore punk band when they started, but as the 80s shifted, they sort of helped usher in what we would know later in the 90s as alternative rock, and we'll talk more about that as well. Now, their earlier releases were on SST, which is Greg Ginn's label, so Greg Ginn from Black Flag, and that label had mostly Southern California-based hardcore bands, but HÜSKER DÜ was on it, and the other thing that SST did was force HÜSKER DÜ to use their engineer-producer Spot on several of their albums, and we'll talk about how well that went down a little bit later as well. Now, Mould, Hart, and Norton first met in person at a concert featuring the Ramones and Foreigner.
That's quite the bill right there.
Like, what? And you know what? That kind of sums up the
right around the time of the year that we're recording this, too. Did you know that? It was just before Thanksgiving?
I didn't know that.
Very timely, Kevin.
Oh.
Yes, how about that? But I think that sums up perfectly the oddity of what would become HÜSKER DÜ. The fact that they were seeing those two bands and where their music goes the rest of the decade of the 80s. Now, the other thing is, if you don't know, they were named after a popular 1970s memory board game, HÜSKER DÜ, which means "Do you remember" in Danish and Norwegian. And then they added the umlauts.
Very important umlauts.
Just because they're fucking cool.
Otherwise, it'd be HÜSKER DÜ.
Right, probably right. So we're going to get into the 6 albums, only 6 albums, 2 live albums, and a couple of EPs here today with Bakko. But first, man, we need to talk to you a little bit more because you are from the Twin Cities, where HÜSKER DÜ are from, and you also are from the music scene. So let's start a little bit with your journey in that, because I think most people, if they know anything about Minnesota bands, they're thinking of, like, from the 70s through the 90s, you got your, Prince, The Time, The Replacements, Soul Asylum. Some people know Babes in Toyland. Some people know Slave Raider and Flip and Trip Shakespeare, who turned into Semisonic.
Yes.
Robert and I have seen them. But let me hear from you, because I think most people will think of you as the hard rock and metal guy, but here you are on today talking about a primarily punk band. So give us a little intro to not only your understanding or your, I'm assuming, enjoyment of HÜSKER DÜ, but also just the Twin Cities and the scene in general.
All right. HÜSKER DÜ and punk rock music in general. There was a friend of mine, and we became kind of tight in 9th grade. He was my skateboarding buddy, and he, I hate calling him spoiled. He was an only child whose mom just gave him money for stuff, and he had trips to the big Twin Cities, and he would go to record stores where he could find things like the Sex Pistols. You could get Black Flag records. I know Black Flag did a lot of advertisement, like Hip Parade and Circus, and you could mail order the albums. But he was my punk rock outfit, JFA, the early
all the skate punk,
all the skate punk, all that early stuff. Not Misfits or the Ramones at that point. I got into that stuff a little bit later, but so that's kind of where I got into HÜSKER DÜ and the Replacements. Actually, I think I got the Replacements separately from him. Not important to the story at all. But yeah, so Flip Your Wig was the first record I heard, but I basically just dubbed everything he had, and that of course included Zen Arcade and Land Speed Record, I believe, were the ones that he owned at the time. But yeah, journey forward, I've always had a pretty wide palette as far as taste in music, and yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not unfair to say my zone is hard rock and metal, but I've also had a pretty natural ear, I like to think, hearing the similarities in music that a lot of people don't. When someone hears something like HÜSKER DÜ, they're not hearing what I hear. It's like that has a little, I can see where this is very similar to something the Beatles did, or even Metallica, and all these different kinds of music. I would find I was always drawn by the things that were common about all these things, and not so much about the things that made them different, those are the things that make them great. But a lot of people, I think, struggle because of the production, the sound, the aggressiveness. Or for me, sometimes it would, like I'd listen to something like HÜSKER DÜ, especially Land Speed Record. You hear that, you go, ooh, what's going on? But then all of a sudden something will click, and then you start hearing more of the layers and like how they put this together, and the commonality that all these, it's bass, drums, guitar, and melody, and so that kind of stuff. So yeah, I get it. While I don't really, I'm definitely not like the poster child for punk rock or HÜSKER DÜ or that kind of stuff. I'm definitely a huge fan and a lifelong fan, basically, since as long as I've had a chance to know about them. But I basically moved up to the Twin Cities in 96. I've been here ever since. I moved up to start a band. I did that. The band basically, it's almost kind of together still. We talk and we jam, and we released a song about a year ago, a cover of a song called Broken People. So I'm still kind of active, but it's not like it was when I first moved up here, where you're going to the club and getting into that. For me, you can't tell the story of HÜSKER DÜ without talking about the Replacements and kind of the divide of St. Paul and Minneapolis, you know what I mean? And so for people not familiar with the area, basically the Twin Cities are named after Minneapolis and St. Paul. St. Paul is the capital of Minnesota, and they're right next to each other, divided by the Mississippi River. And then, of course, the surrounding suburbs. But, there is definitely, it's not as serious now as it was, 10 years, 20 years, it gets, the further away you get, it seems like things are kind of, people don't care as much, but there was definitely a kind of rivalry between the two towns. St. Paul being a little more blue collar, but for lack of a better term, but yeah, so Bob Mould was going to a McAllister College about 2 miles from where I'm at right now, here in St. Paul. That's where I'm at. And Grant Hart was working at a record store that they've moved a few times from where it was originally, but I was actually at on a Saturday called Cheapo Records, and that's where those two met. Grant had actually met Greg at a record store. I can't remember the name of the record store, but it was in a mall that's closed now in West St. Paul. He got a job that Grant wanted, and they became friends that way. And then, he's like, hey, my friend Bob wants to go see the Ramones with us before Foreigner. And he picked him up and then went to pick up Greg at Greg's house. And like I said, it was before Thanksgiving. And Greg's mom was like, well, are you going home for Thanksgiving? And when she found out he was, just staying at the dorm, she invited him over. And he's like, Mom, I just met this guy. So, but the band started playing not too long after that. There was, oh, God, maybe I'm getting ahead of you a little bit here, but there was a guy named Chip. He was a keyboard player, and he booked a couple gigs for him. And the story goes that on the second gig, they had time to play more music because the people were sticking around, and so they started playing stuff that they had been secretly rehearsing without him. And then he tried to play on keyboards, and apparently Grant's brother came up and unplugged the keyboard, and that's how their relationship ended.
Oh, damn!
And the keyboardist is done.
So I mentioned the Replacements because they were kind of doing the same thing at exactly the same time. A different, their own thing, I should say, but on the other side of the river. Now they ended up all playing the same club. So as we go through this, we'll probably talk about a place called the Longhorn. Of course, you got 7th Street Entry, First Ave. Those are the kind of the two main ones. But like the Replacements got signed to the local indie label Twin Tone, and Twin Tone passed on Husker. And so you still had that kind of like that butting heads in battle. And the way that everybody involved talks about it now, they kind of downplay it as like, oh, of course we were competitive, but we we're still friends. And I'm like, I kind of wonder how accurate that is. How friendly were, Keith and Mick with, the Beatles, during the late 60s. That's kind of how I look at it. But for my time, the closest thing I had to anything like that was Flip and a band called Janus Figure, and it was definitely not competitive. They were gigging all the time, but they were the two big bands in the scene when I started playing.
No, I'm going to take you back just a little bit. So your personal timeline, though, with Husker Du, you said it was kind of the skateboard days for you. Now, you didn't live in the Twin Cities back then, right? You were in a smaller town?
No, yeah, about an hour south.
Was the appeal of Husker Du for you guys the fact that they were so close, that they were kind of hometown heroes? Because you're finding out about them like midway through their discography, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that had some effect on me. I don't recall that being common knowledge at the time because they were on SST Records, which I was familiar with because I was already listening to Black Flag.
Right.
And, I would, start venturing in and sending my own, cashier's checks to California to Greg Ginn to package me up my Black Flag addictions. But yeah, so I think it was a bigger draw for me with the Replacements early on than it was for Husker Du. Not that we're talking Replacements. The song that hooked me for the Replacements was their cover of Black Diamond. I had never heard anybody cover Kiss.
Who?
When I saw it on there, I assumed it was not the Kiss song, but hearing a band cover a song like that, the way they did it, I was like, fuck yeah. This is, my reputation on covers, anybody that listens to Cobras on Fire knows, I think you can get rid of 90% of them and the quality of overall music would be better. But not saying there aren't any good ones, I'm saying most of them aren't good. But something fresh and unique like that was a big draw for me for the Replacements. But I was already into Husker Du at that point too.
You also don't like shows that are labeled Shoulda Been Huge.
Yeah, for the most part. And I'll stand by it with this. There's no fucking reason Husker Du should have been huge. I think if the Replacements, they maybe had a shot. Like they wrote some songs and that I think people can relate to on a big picture. They ended up getting some slicker production that actually enhanced the audience base, but they were such a fucking self-destructive train wreck, it was never going to happen. That's more like saying if Ace Frehley sobered up, he'd be so much better. No, it's just part of the package, man. It's just what it is. With Husker Du, even when they kind of got their major label stuff, other than one song, which I assume we'll talk about, I can't think of anything that I would go, God, if they would just play this on the radio, they'd be massive. No. And I think part of it for me is that like growing up and getting, it's like getting over shit, it doesn't matter to me. I actually like things that are niche. I don't think the NHL should be trying to get bigger. I think it should be trying to get smaller. You skate on ice and people don't have the time to pay attention to it. I think it's better. I think it's neat when you have a band that has their kind of niche, solid following. Look at a band like Clutch.
All right.
So yeah, that's where that comes from. When people say something underrated, or you guys have kind of turned it into your own kind of like show thing, we're calling it Shoulda Been Huge. They're almost always basically saying, I love this band and you should too. I'm like, well, not the people that blow up. I mean, look at the audience at a Springsteen show. Do you have any fucking respect for most of these people as far as their music taste? I'm not taking a shot at Springsteen. I'm just going, if this guy is that's the Springsteen fan, I'm just, you dick. They're not for me.
I hear you. We'll get into it a little bit more as we go through the songs.
Yeah.
But I knew that was your take.
For people who aren't aware, that's where my basis of that is. Fight me.
All right. So a little background from Robert and I. So Robert, your take on Husker Du, when were you introduced? It's much later, right? For you?
90s. And I'd heard...
Because of Sugar?
No, just the name.
Okay.
I would hear it about, and it was a very unique name, so it kind of stuck in my head, and I knew there was some punk band that I wasn't into at the time because I wasn't into punk music until much later in life. And it took our friend, Captain Ryan, taking me to a Bob Mould show, and I had to kind of pregame and listen to some stuff so I wouldn't be completely lost at this concert, and it was really good. So he did a mix of Sugar and
he
Bob
didn't play
Mould.
a lot of Husker Du, did he?
No, but it got me.
I was going to say, he probably didn't play any, really.
No.
Maybe one or two? I don't know.
I couldn't have told you because
Celebrated Summer.
When he was doing it was a stripped down show, so I couldn't have told you who it was. Like between Sugar and Bob Mould, I can't pick the difference between Sugar song. You get into the later Husker Du, I can't either. So I have to have Captain Ryan standing there next to me, like smack me in the back of the head, like that's Husker Du. No, that's Sugar. No, that's Bob Mould.
Well, it's the same guy. So.
Yeah, it's the same guy. But I took a deep dive about 2.5 years ago and just started at the beginning and went through it several times, like the whole progression from beginning to end. And it kind of sticks with me a little bit better now. But you got to appreciate the raw days up to the stuff that sounds like Sugar.
Well, my introduction was very aligned with Bakko's because I was first introduced to them in 1986. When I was discovering hardcore, thanks to Brandon Still, and we were skateboarders, and I knew they had a connection to Black Flag. I knew they had a connection to SST, which was, like you say, it was, where we were sending our money to get tapes and things like that, or Thrasher Magazine, where I was sending money to get tapes, and I had heard of Husker Du, but I didn't really listen to them. Nobody had them. I didn't have a friend that owned any of their tapes. But in 87, a year later, I was starting to branch out more into metal and just kind of gobbling, anything I could up about metal and in the whole world of punk. And along with Thrasher Magazine, I started picking up this new magazine called Rip. And the May issue of 87 featured Yngwie Malmsteen on the cover. And then it had, a list of who else had featured articles on it. And it was Guns N' Roses, Ron Wood, AC/DC, and Husker Du, which is now it's like, whoa, that's bizarre. But that's what Rip did. They were trying to merge all those things. I discovered all 5 of those bands via that magazine, via that one issue. I discovered all 5 of those bands. I didn't know any of them. And Husker Du, when I read that article, I was like, God, they look really weird. They look like hippies. They don't look punk or metal. And Greg Norton, for God's sake, he had a handlebar mustache. So I'm like, what the hell is going on with this guy? And so I honestly didn't pursue Husker Du until later because I just thought they were weird. But freshman year of college, I started branching out again, and I remembered Husker Du. And so I ended up picking up Zen Arcade. A cassette tape of Zen Arcade, and as soon as I got through side 1 of that cassette tape, I was instantly a fan, and I was hooked. And so that's how I got into the band. So let's get into the music, shall we? And
I got a quick thing to kind of kick back at Robert with a little bit.
Yeah.
Not kick back, but
bring it on, man.
I've seen Bob Mould 3 times, and my experience isn't a whole lot different than yours. And I have a background in his. Now his solo stuff, I think I maybe have dove into about 30% of it. All of Sugar, all of Husker Du. But when I go see him live, it's like there's about it's probably more than you, but like maybe half the show a couple times where it's like, I don't know this song, you know, and it's like, and he never dove into the Husker Du stuff. There was a 2004 show. There was, the guy from Soul Asylum who got cancer. They did a benefit show, and Grant Hart did join Bob for a couple of Husker songs, but I was not there. But.
Well, and to make matters worse, Hoodoo Gurus, aren't they Australian?
They are.
And so for the longest time, I thought Husker Du was from Australia.
What the hell did you just say?
Get out of waffle.
I'm not kidding. I'm an idiot. I know that, but it's one of those things that I just never thought to look into it. I got them completely mixed up, and I think I referred to them as the Husker Durus.
Yeah, they toured a lot with Midnight Oil.
I ain't a smart man.
All right, well let's get into this. I'm going to play a little clip, and Bakko, you've probably seen or heard this before. I'm just going to play this as a little bit of a setup here.
I said, like, what's Husker Du? And he's like, they play fast. I'm like, what? Like fast, like the Ramones? Like maybe faster. I'm like, really faster than the Ramones? He's like, wow. They combine velocity with melody, with aggression, with despair, yearning. I mean, they wrapped up everything that was cool about rock and roll, even from the beginning, and they made it all their own deal.
In the early 1980s, Husker Du became the first Minnesota band to join a new subculture moving throughout North America. For a brief time, they embraced the speed, sound, and fury, and encouraged everyone around them to create Minnesota hardcore.
We'll be back for another set.
It's a little Twin Cities PBS special there for you.
I was going to say that's from the PBS special. What is it called? Minnesota Hardcore.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really freaking cold and I can't feel my feet.
And people say they can't pick out Mold's lyrics. So.
So I played that up front because I think a lot of people, like, there's two different versions of Husker Du. There's the early days where they were all about being the fastest hardcore band that there ever was, and that was their goal. And their first couple of releases, you mentioned Land Speed Record, it was all about that. And that's not exactly what I love about Husker Du. So we're not really going to go into some of that early stuff because to me that was just, it was a brief moment in time, and it was them really just figuring out who they were as songwriters. And then once they really started writing songs, that's where I want to focus our effort today on, because to me that's where Husker Du really defined their own sound versus just being another hardcore band, even though they helped that whole scene grow and become what it was. But it was a very short-lived thing.
I'm with you as far as like preference, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of Husker Du fans that would be like, you're not going to fucking feature, Land Speed Record. Like, there's people that's their favorite Husker Du record.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. And I agree with what you're saying too. But if they would have stuck with hardcore, they would have been huge.
I see what you did there.
Thanks.
Hugely obscure.
Yes, even more hugely obscure. It was just a point in time to me. And, the 13, 14-year-old Kevin was all about it. But as I've grown older, it's like I can listen to it for a little bit, but it just doesn't have the same appeal as some of the songs that they wrote a little bit later.
I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, first of all, you can't playlist it because it's basically 2 tracks.
Right. Well, that's the other thing.
But yeah, but I do think for me, I look at it more as like a progression of like, say, like the debut Kiss record to, I don't know, Destroyer. I don't see it as much as like just blip in time. I think it was actually like the first step of where they were going. So
no, that's a good point. You keep mentioning this band that I'm not familiar with, but I think I've heard of them.
They're from Australia?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Kiss?
Yeah, where are they from?
They're just a local band here in the Twin Cities that I like a lot. But they could have been huge, but they couldn't keep their shit together. So
it's one of Prince's offshoots.
Oh, I know. You're talking about Kiss. There's your Kiss connection with a K.
Setting you up for your own bit very good, I guess.
Yeah, you just
okay, fair enough. How about the debut Maiden record, The Power Slave?
I got you now. I'm with you now. I just had to think about it a little harder.
Yeah, no, I got it. Kiss.
All right, so we're going to start today. So they only have 6 official full-length albums. So we're going to start with the first one and move through all 6. And the first one's called Everything Falls Apart. And even though this was the first album, it was not on SST. This is the one that Twin Tones passed, I believe, on when they were trying to put all this together. And so they created their own label called Reflex. And they put this
and I
out.
think they did that with money from Mike Waters. Is that a different record?
I remember hearing that story, but I'm not sure if it's this one.
That might be Land Speed, actually.
Maybe. Yeah, right before they got on SST.
Yeah, Land Speed is not what eventually was put on SST, but it came out ahead of that, and then there was, oh, God. See, now this is where I probably should have done a little more research.
That's all right.
Because they also have that Statues 45, which is on, like, I own And Everything Falls Apart and More, and it has that and some other stuff that came out that wasn't on an official release, but...
yeah, so those were singles...
Carry on, Kevin.
Yeah, no, those were singles released before this. So, just like you, I didn't discover this album until it was repackaged. I believe you just held up a copy of the repackaged one, right?
Yeah, this is on Rhino.
Yep.
Nobody sees this. Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah, so I got that. That's why I found out about this release. And so when they re-released it in 1993, I'm assuming to capitalize on the success that Mold was having with Sugar. And so they put this back out. It would make sense. At least that's why they did it. But this is how I heard it, and this is the version that I have. It's hard to find this thing now. They didn't really keep re-releasing it after 93, so it's not as easy to find. And I'm going to play a song here that, to me, shows this early on. This is 1983. It shows kind of where they're headed. So I'm not going to play one of the fastest songs or the most hardcore songs. I'm going to play one that I think is kind of showing the trajectory. Now, they also did a punk rock cover version of a Donovan song on this album, which is kind of cool.
Sunshine Superman?
That's right. And so it gives you an idea early on that these guys actually have a background in 60s psych and classic rock, and they loved all that stuff as well. So, early on, I assume a lot of the punkers didn't even know that was a cover at the time, but we're not going to play that one. We're going to play the title track. This is Everything Falls Apart.
If I listen to the things you said, everything would fall apart. If I did all the things that you knew, everything could fall apart. Let's not listen to the things that they say, and everything can fall apart. Let's think about our actions, what we do, and everything will fall apart. I got nothing to do, we got nothing to say. Everything is so fucked up, I guess it's natural that way. Everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. If I did all the things that you do, everything could fall apart. If I listened to the things that you told me, everything would fall apart. Let's think about our actions, what we do, and everything will fall apart. If we do all the things that we say, everything can fall apart. I got nothing to do, we got nothing to say. Everything is so fucked up, I guess it's natural that way. Everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. I got nothing to do, we got nothing to say. Everything is so fucked up, I guess we like it that way. Everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. If I listen to the things that you said, everything.
Yeah, so this is the wheelhouse where I start really paying attention instead of just kind of cringing my way through the album. So you've got Land Speed record first, and did you say this was the second one?
Actually, Land Speed was it before or after now?
It was, yeah.
It was before,
Land Speed was 81, I believe.
Yeah. So this has got the layers of guitar. I love that sound of the kind of the clean with the heavy mixed in with it. It's got a chorus. It's got a verse. This is where punk rock, this genre of punk rock, really lets me listen to it. The other stuff goes, okay, that was interesting. I heard it for historical purposes. Done. This, I'm like, no, I'm going to play this again and listen to it.
Still considered a hardcore band, though. This is before they signed on with SST. So, I think I picked this song because to me, this is kind of a little bit of that blueprint for it. This is kind of what we're going to do later.
Yeah.
It's like a bridge between the hardcore to what they were getting into. And it is kind of weird that they kind of lumped it in with punk because there's elements to what they do of punk, but they're not very punk in almost any sense. But I believe most of this early stuff, especially this record, I think it's largely just one track of the guitar. There might be two. But Bob Mould, I really Robert, forgive me. Do you play guitar as well or not?
I've been known to.
Okay. I've had a hard time, like, anytime I've tried to, like, pick apart what Mold does, even when I watch him, it's like, oh, that's what he's doing. And then I sit down and I'm like, that's not... I don't know what the fuck he has a way of attacking the strings and using chords that we all use and making it sound a little different. There is a ton of modulation on a lot of his stuff with Husker. I think it's probably a chorus for the most part, but
yeah.
What kind of sadist sits down and tries to figure out how to play that? That's so fast and it's chord changes and everything else. You got to be in a bad mood to really want to put yourself through that. Like, damn it, that's a lot of work.
And I saw a show of his at First Avenue where it was just him and an electric guitar. You really don't see that.
I heard about that show.
It was really cool. I was like, this is going to be weird if he doesn't have a band come out. I can kind of get into it with an acoustic, but it was like, by the end of it, it was like, that was one of the most unique things I've ever seen.
I should have gone. I heard about that show that's what he was doing. Like, I don't think I'm going to go see that.
But you said he pulled it off. It sounded good.
Absolutely, yeah.
Bizarre. Okay.
His flying V sitting down too. Anybody who's tried to play a flying V sitting down knows that there's
your elbow
a special skill it takes to be able to do that.
Well, let's further peel that onion a little bit of Husker Du considered a hardcore punk band, and you've got Bob playing a flying V, which, that's like the most metal guitar, especially for the early 80s, You think about Randy Rhoads.
Ibanez, too. It was an Ibanez V.
Not very punk rock. And then their look, they...
Oh, my God. Yeah, let's talk about that. It's like polo shirts that you would get at not a nice polo.
Yeah.
Like, this is the one you got at Goodwill that the person who owned it before bought it at Kmart.
Right.
And when they got too old, and tucked into their khakis.
Yeah.
And
white socks.
That's Bob. And then Greg looks like some kind of gym teacher with a weird, pizza man porn stash going on. And Grant just walks around barefoot all the time.
Yeah. Not what you would consider at that time the look of punk.
Now, did they maintain that?
Hardcore.
Yes, they maintained that.
Okay,
the entire time.
We've talked about how a lot of goth bands, The Cure and others, started off really preppy looking until they got goth. Yeah. But so you're saying they stuck with that.
That was the Husker Du. They didn't give a shit, which makes my point I'm trying to make is that makes them more punk than any punk band who was posing out there.
Yeah, the spiked hair and nose rings.
Because the true essence of punk is do your thing. Do whatever that is. Do whatever the fuck you want.
But a lot of punk, and Grant and Hart made this point, that, and until I heard an interview of him talking about this, I never thought about it. It was not working class people. It was suburban kids who just thought they were edgy and trying to piss off their parents, that kind of stuff. And he literally, and proved me wrong, I guess, but he said Husker Du they're the first band that was a working class punk rock band. And I think that's absolutely accurate. But to the overall point, while researching, getting ready for this show, I should say, I watched in 1987, which is the end of their career, a Pink Pop festival, and literally the description I made of what they were wearing is exactly how they looked that day. So they got all the Warner Brothers money, they got all this stuff, they got roadies, and they're still like, $8 for a polo, that seems like a lot. Let's go to Goodwill,
Exactly. Which would become a thing much later, for kids trying to be that indie cred or or whatever. But yeah, they were the real deal. All right, so let's get to the next album, the one that made me a fan, and I think one that a lot of people just really hold in high regard. Shoulda Been Huge, Bakko. Later in 83, they signed with Greg Ginn's SST label. They released the EP Metal Circus, and Grant starts kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit with his songs. So he really gets out of the hardcore thing and just does, he does a song called It's Not Funny Anymore, which was really about kind of taking a jab at the whole thing of, we don't have to be what you think we are. We're just going to write songs. And so he had that song, and he had one called Diane, which was not hardcore at all. And so started pushing the boundaries.
On Metal Circus, real quick, that album cover is, to me, probably one of the best HÜSKER DÜ album covers. But Grant was also a visual artist, and I know he did that one in Flip Your Wig, and I believe he was responsible for Zen Arcade. Yeah, actually, I think for all their album covers,
he did all of them.
He had a hand in, but he was definitely an artist beyond just music. And if you ever heard him talk, he talks very much like an artist. And like a quick story or anecdote that he shared one time was that like one of his brothers died, and he was one of three, and somebody at the funeral, like a family friend or something, came up and told him and his other brother that they now had to each take on 50% of whatever the older brother was doing for the family. And Grant was like, well, he was kind of musical and artistic, so I'll take that 50%. I'm like, I'm not sure that's what they were saying. They were thinking maybe help out with the dishes and the yard work, but good for you, Grant.
Yep. He actually did not only just HÜSKER DÜ artwork, but he also did some replacement stuff as well. So yeah. I think he did Hootenanny or one of those he did.
Maybe it was the replacement Stink, where it was just a stamp. I don't know.
So they released Metal Circus. We're not going to cover Metal Circus. We're going to move on to the next album. But in between that, they released a single that got some buzz as well, which was a cover version of The Byrds' 8 Miles High. So here they are again covering 60s music, as a punk band, which was not done. And that actually pushed them into a new scene that was happening at the time called college radio, which, as we know, that was the precursor to what would become alternative. Alt. So, that's in 84 when they're starting to push.
No, and they also at some point had a cover of the Mary Tyler theme song.
What? They did. Yep, that's right.
There's another juxtaposition between them and the Replacements. The Replacements, especially with their more diehard fans, are often called the world's best cover band. Yeah, and there's a performance that was recorded in like Nebraska that they ended up releasing. And it's like the sound quality of a board tape. Oh, God, what's it called? Anyway, there's a shit ton of covers on that. My point there was that at the same time, while these guys are kind of like competing scenes, they were both bands were kind of doing kind of like kind of pushing the boundaries of like kind of creative like covers that they could do. And I think having fun with kind of like covers is a big part of punk music as well. So
yep, absolutely. Okay, so with all that going on, they then want to experiment more. They want to be true punk, which again, true punk means doing whatever the hell you want to do without any constraints of genre or perceptions. Even though we know that's at the time, that's not what most people thought of punk and metal and all these other boxes people wanted to put bands in. And what they came up with was a double album, a concept record. So it should have been huge because concept double albums are always huge. It was about a young boy who runs away from a shitty home life only to find the world outside is even shittier. Okay.
I think we've all done that. Yeah.
Is this? I've never heard any of the guys actually say that this was like there was an actual storyline that they followed through. This seems maybe revisionist. I don't know.
I always thought it was, but yeah,
well,
maybe.
I heard Bob Ezra was the producer.
Bob Ezrin, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm convinced.
Yeah. He was like, well, I just did The Wall. I might as well do yours. Yeah. Okay.
You got a Coke?
Yeah. You got me Coke.
Lay out some lines. We'll strike a deal. Yeah. So
I'm more of a heroin guy, Bob.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
So this album, not a huge commercial success. SST, in fact, didn't even press enough albums.
Wait a second.
Yes.
What album on SST would you call a huge commercial success?
One that sold 50 copies.
Well, I'm just saying it wasn't as big as it should have been, Bakko. Yeah. So what?
Hey, agreed. You're not going to have the hard time telling me that.
The point being that SST, their label, didn't even think it was going to do as well as it did because they didn't press enough albums to meet initial demand. So they go on tour and they show up and kids can't even get the album. It's not available because they didn't make enough. So
that's kind of the issue with being on an indie, though, is that like you make as many records as you can. And if they sell like this one did, then it's like, well, in 3 months when we get paid, we'll see if we can do some more. We're like, if it's Warner Brothers, it's like, whatever, we'll get that money eventually. Make some fucking more records, you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yeah, so here you have HÜSKER DÜ not being able to sell their album, but people want it. And as far as critical success, it was pretty massive critical success. So, the music press, the folks that usually I up my nose at, the Rolling Stones, the Spins, Rock Hall, all of these, entities to this day critically praise this album. And usually that would be a big turnoff for me, but they got this one right because this is the first one I bought. And this is the one that made me an instant fan. So I am going to, Bakko, you sent me some songs.
I was like, you want me to pick 2
yeah.
from this record? It's Jesus.
I said, Bakko, send me a couple songs from each album and I'll pick one of them to play. And yeah, this one, you were just kind of like, oh, fuck it. Just whatever. The whole album.
Yeah.
Celebrate the entire catalog.
Yeah. So I am going to play, I thought, we heard from Bob on the first tune. So let's hear a little Grant Hart here. So we're going to listen to the song Pink Turns to Blue.
So another great example of, it sounds simple, what he's playing on the guitar, but there's some notes or chords in there that I will not be able to figure out. There was some minor things thrown in there, some dissonant notes, some...
It's what I love so much about HÜSKER DÜ.
Making it up completely, pulling it out of his ass that I couldn't figure out those chords because it was just, there was something going on in there and you could hear it kind of just drop like a half a tune, but it get back into a major chord again after that.
It's like controlled chaos.
Yeah, it really was controlled chaos. The speed, the intensity is there. But like I said, it had that melody to it. That's what draws me in. That's the same thing with Motorhead and all these other bands that have a little punk sensibility to them. They're just hard driving, but they've got some melodies that I can sing along to. That's what it's all about, whether or not I can sing along to it.
And Grant Hart, I think he is probably, as a drummer, the closest thing we've seen to Keith Moon since Keith Moon. He's got this kind of chaotic vibe to the way he approaches it. Now, I have my own issues with the production or the audio quality of this band all the way through their career, but at the same time, it's almost kind of one of the things that draws me to it. It's hard to describe, but this song was on the list of ones I did give you. I know Never Talking to You Again was probably the song I go back to on this record the most. And to me, it's almost like the sister song to I Don't Want to Know If You're Lonely, which is a little more balls out, but a very similar kind of melodic kind of Grant Hill song. And he really was developing as a songwriter right along with Bob. I appreciate that more as I get older, but and then What's Going On is a great song on this record. These are I'm just going to rattle off the ones that I texted you before I said fuck it the whole album. Something I Learned Today. We just played Pink Turns Blue. Turn on the News. Monday Will Never Be the Same, and the Biggest Lie. But yeah, and What's Going On, I like that like I was talking when I should have been listening.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, the weird thing is that like this album, maybe it was because of how big it was. It was the second HÜSKER DÜ record I listened to, and I'm like, I'm going to go back and listen to Flip Your Wig a few hundred more times before I go back to this. But I did want to show you this, Kevin. I believe this is probably not the first printing because it's sold out, but definitely an 80s pressing of Zen Arcade. So
nice. Yeah, I have a re-release. I don't have that. That's really cool. And some of the coolest art as well, like another great Grant Hart. Now, you said earlier, you said Grant Hill. I'm pretty sure Grant Hill is not on this recording.
That was Hank Hill.
That's a classic Bakko move there. And I appreciate you actually calling me out for it. I have fun with that. But yeah, absolutely Grant Hill. He actually was in HÜSKER DÜ for a brief period after Grant Hart left, but we said we need another Grant, but it turns out he couldn't play drums.
He couldn't play drums, but his layup was amazing.
Or write songs. But yeah, he had a better layup than Bob did.
Oh, man. That is awesome.
Sorry, folks.
No worries. I had to call you out on it.
I meant no disrespect to the late, great Grantsburg Hill.
All right, so then we move on from Zen Arcade.
Oh, real quick, Kevin, we should touch on this. I think this is very important. Pete, this was, as much as this is a double album, I mean, you think of like spending time and doing this stuff. They were writing songs in the van at 10 a.m. and then going in and recording them, and they were doing this constantly. I think the album entirely was recorded in a couple weeks or less.
Yeah, which is what they usually did. And then the other thing they did was they wrote like the next 3 albums and played them like a year or two before they recorded them. So they were writing all these songs at the same time and playing them live. So something that comes out 3 albums later that we'll get to was actually played on stage in 1984. It's just prolific as hell. And that's kind of where I was going. This band, they just one after another, sometimes or most times you get 2 albums a year out of them. So while they weren't around that long, man, they were prolific in the time that they were there. Yep. So the 3rd album comes out in January of 85. And this album for me, along with, even though Zen Arcade was my first that I got, this next album, New Day Rising, is probably the one that's been in the most heavy rotation for me. When I was in my sophomore year of college, 1992, this was on in my dorm room, blasting all the time. And everybody around me were playing grunge, because that was when grunge was really exploding and everybody was getting into it. And I was as well, but to me, New Day Rising was kind of like, well, if you guys like grunge, just listen to this. And so I used to just put it on, and it worked perfectly, because everybody fell in love with New Day Rising. And it came out in 1985. So it just shows you how ahead of everything else they were. This is another album that's in their evolution away from just punk and hardcore, although it has a lot of those elements still. It's still punk enough to be respected by the punks and to still be an SST record. And here again, you talked about the production on Zen Arcade. Here again, you've got Spot doing engineering and producing, and the band didn't want that. They wanted a more seasoned producer, but when you're on SST, you kind of have to use Spot. That's how they did it. It was in-house production and engineering, and that's kind of why you get the sound that you get. It does have its own thing, though, like you were saying, Bakko. Like, I can't imagine a Black Flag album or Descendants, without that Spot sound, which is... It sounds like you're in a garage. Sounds like you're in a room.
Yeah, I'm not a hater of the guy, but I understand why they didn't like him. But real quick in the production, until recently, I had never heard. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who was actually the very first bass player that I was in a band with up here. He's huge into the Minneapolis music scene from this time. And I asked him one day, just on a HÜSKER DÜ whim about 5 years ago, I'm like, is it just me? Have you ever heard any reason why Bob Mould's vocals are always fucking buried? Because it's the same on Sugar. It's the same on most of his solo shit. Like, why is it like that? I actually heard Bob talk about it a little bit, like when at the end of the Warner Brothers stuff, is like, yeah, they started giving us feedback, like, can't we push the vocals a little more, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so you fucking do know your vocals are somebody, it's like, why just bring them up a little bit, man, and then maybe put a little bass on that snare.
Maybe take the treble down off your guitar a little bit. How about that?
Oh, so has he ever said that that's just the way he likes it? Or is it?
I always assumed that he heard it differently.
I always assumed that he played so damn loud that's the way he wanted to hear it, because his guitar was always above everything. Okay. So.
A lot of these counterculture movements, whether we're talking like black metal in like Norway, Sweden, like part of it is to have a sound that isn't comfortable to everybody. That is kind of the point. They don't want it to be something that should have been huge.
But not HÜSKER DÜ, man.
Real quick on New Day Rising, for some reason, this is the last HÜSKER DÜ record I ever heard.
Oh, wow.
And it was in the 90s. You know what I mean? Because I was already kind of moving into thrash. I was balls deep into hair metal. Yeah! My skateboard was collecting dust. I was about to graduate high school. And so, somewhere in the mid-90s, I finally heard this record. But because prior to that, basically, I had everything else.
Huh. That's a similar story I have coming up with some other releases that we're going to talk about. But this one was huge for me.
It's an amazing record. It's one of their best.
Yeah, probably tied with Zen Arcade for me as far as my personal favorite. And 85 is when this came out. And that was when a lot of the original punk and hardcore bands were either disbanding or they were starting to modify their own sound so that they could try to commercialize themselves and make a little more money. So they were either getting more melodic or they were going the metal route. Yet here you have HÜSKER DÜ kind of forming this thing that we don't know where it's going, but it's college rock, and it's, they're getting even more into that. So let's play the title track. You gave me a few on this one as well. I was going to play Celebrated Summer, but you gave me shit for it. So so we're going to play New Day Rising, and we'll talk about why you gave me shit when we come back.
Okay.
That entire song, from start to finish, was any other band's big finish. I mean, they started off with dessert right in the beginning and just kept the dessert going through the entire song.
Yeah.
They kept adding whipped cream as they went along. It was so good.
I get it. Yeah.
It's almost like a troll. It's like, really, if we would have done one of our big finishes, like a Big Jack big finish,
yes,
and just started
64
with that,
hits.
Why did we wait till last?
I know, man.
We should never have saved it, because you could die in the middle of the song and you would never get to the big finish. Start with it. Genius.
I thought you were going to hate that.
Why?
I thought that was going to be the one that was not in your wheelhouse at all.
But see, that's the thing. When you get into the weirdness section of music, yes, then all of a sudden you have my attention. But there's a fine line, and I'll fall off that line and go, no, that sucks. But no, that was just weird. Now, can I listen to that 15 times? No. But God, that was good. Just the fact that they just went, fuck it.
No, not 15. 16.
So 14 is the number?
Yeah, 14. I could do it 14 times and then go, nope, I'm out. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
I love that song. They basically did nothing but say New Day Rising over and over and doing it in different, just the tones that they were doing, the harmonies they were doing. Oh, man, so good. So good.
I never thought about it that way, Kevin. It's not like that song 138 from the Misfits.
You don't need lyrics. Just say the title. Why did you pick that one? And then why could I not pick Celebrated Summer?
Well, for us Hoosker snobs, Celebrated Summer is what the tourists pick.
I see.
Yeah.
Even though it's the song that
you
should
gave
have
me
been
crap about
huge.
the books about UFO, like that's the fucking,
That's the hill
the
you're going to die on.
Who's Do song. I'm like, really? Books about UFOs? Nah, look, it's even got a dumb title. Celebrated Summer is like at least something that like the mainstream people can go, well, that sounds like a song I could listen to. You tell them you got to
snappy,
Bakko. Books about UFOs, and they're like, wait, am I reading a book or watching a UFO movie? I don't understand.
I love all of these songs on this album, but
no, there's not a bad song on there. I wasn't criticizing the song, but I was just, well, look, we're having a little fun.
No, it's cool. Celebrated Summer to me is one of the songs, though, that Bob does still play it, and it's the one that you give a little better production on it. Maybe it could have done a little something more than it did.
You're saying it could have been huge?
I'm saying it could have been huge. Okay. But that's just me. For Bakko, perfectly rated.
Right where it should
Absolutely.
be.
Yeah.
Stay right there. No.
Well, think about this. What else was big? Think about this song, think about this album, and then think about what else was big or getting big in 1985. I kind of get why it wasn't big when you think about that.
My beard was getting big.
Your beard?
Grew from like 4 whiskers to 12.
I'm just saying, it's like going on a Kiss podcast and someone says, hey, what song would you pick off Kiss Alive? And going, you know what? Probably Rock and Roll All Night. Now, again, I think most of the people probably listen to this show. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know your audience as well as you guys would. But your whole show is based about being in obscuria. This is, if there is an unobscure Hüsker Dü song, this probably comes in number 2.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Agreed. All right. Well, let's move into the territory where I didn't discover until much later, which you know what you're going to do? Bakko, you're going to flip your wig when I tell you this. But I did not hear this album. I did not hear this album until probably the 2000s.
What's wrong with you?
Just hold your wad there, fella.
It's my gateway, man. This is my entry point.
Yeah. Same year, 1985, they were the best-selling band on SST Records. They outsold Black Flag. I'm sure Greg was really happy about that. Now, they were still getting the push, even though they were making some bank for SST based on, the rest of their artists. They were still getting pushed to utilize Spot, and they weren't really liking that because they wanted to they had a vision for a different sound. And by this point in time, the major labels have taken notice of Hüsker Dü and kind of their trajectory, their potential to perhaps be huge, Bakko. So
I guarantee the label was looking at it that way. Yes.
So they were actually getting, wined and dined while they were out there doing their punk rock thing. And they actually signed to Warner's prior to this album even coming out. Mm-hmm. So Flip Your Wig, Warner's tried to get this on their label to be the first album, but Hüsker Dü did right by SST. They owed them a solid. and they gave
And
him
this is
this
the
album.
first one not produced by Spot, correct?
That's right. So that was kind of the thing, like, hey, we'll keep it on SST, but we're calling the shots on this. And they're like, okay, you go for it. So they produced this themselves, and this is the first true power pop record from Husker Du. This is them becoming the blueprint for what would become alternative music in the 90s, yet this was released 5 years prior in 1985.
Let me ask you a quick question, Kevin, because you talk about this being power pop, and we tie this into the Shoulda Been Huge thing, but at the same time, this definitely is a record that still appealed to people who were kind of buying into this. Again, I don't know if we were calling it alternative music at that point or not, but definitely counterculture type thinkers. Like, this was not a record that anybody that like was checking out Whitney Houston was also playing for me. I mean, this is
That was so spot on.
You don't
Thank
have to play every single
I appreciate
clip,
it.
man.
Yeah, I don't need clips. You just sing.
Anyway, so I don't know. It's not really a question, but it's like, well, you say things like, this was like a power pop. This is them doing that. I know I get what you're saying, but at the same time, this still had that counterculture appeal without having actually any mainstream attractiveness to it.
No, you're right. I think where I'm going is this band, they don't have the same love or notoriety that REM does. And I think this is a much better band than REM. I'll be honest, I can't stand REM, but they went from doing a very similar thing, had a very similar trajectory, and they became REM. You can look at...
I think they were a little more commercial at the beginning than Husker Du ever was.
Yeah.
And they definitely benefited from maybe a little slicker production.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. I mean, even U2. I mean, look at how, my God, they started off same thing. They were trying to be counterculture, trying to be different. And yeah, they wrote popular tunes, but they were still considered, when they first came out, still considered new wave punk. But, it seems like things could have gone a different way. They just didn't.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like the conversation we're having.
Okay, so this album, Flip Your Wig, I'll let you talk a little bit more about it, but I'll just note this. It did debut number 5 on the CMJ album charts, which was the college music album charts, which is a new thing then. So, it did all right. They had the spots in Cream Magazine, Spin, Rolling Stone, so they were getting some notice. They just didn't sell as many records as maybe some of the other bands that were also getting noticed at the same time, is all I'm trying to say. But they did chart number 1 in the UK, and this should have been a breakthrough for them.
Well, yeah, I get back to the buried vocals. I think you're going to have a hard time getting any type of breakthrough when people are having a hard time hearing what you're saying. Guys like you and I, the three of us might be attracted to something a little bit different and pulled in and not worry about that so much. But if like I was saying about Whitney Houston, Robert, so hoping he would jump in.
If you're not doing it again.
No. That was one off.
But it's just, who else was popular in '85? Like Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, like all these Level 45. You can hear what the guy's singing.
The Miami Vice soundtrack that was popular in 1985.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
I've got a copy sitting right here.
If only
I love the cover. Nobody can see it, but I'm holding it up here. To me, I don't have a problem with any song on the record, but I sent you a couple that I would pick if you forced me to. But then this is another one where I said also the whole album.
The whole album, right? So this is, like I said, I didn't hear this until probably 2000. For whatever reason, even though I loved Husker Du, I loved Sugar, Bob Mould, as soon as I got the 3 albums, or 4, as soon as I had 4 albums, I didn't get the other 2. So I never had Flip Your Wig or Candy Apple Gray until the 2000s. I just didn't pick them up for whatever reason. But even though I love the band, so it was kind of fun in a way because I got new Husker Du music, later. Husker Du. Yeah. I got
Husker Du. Yeah,
Husker
I
Du.
like that. well played, Robert.
I'm all about saving time.
Well, condense my banter then, and we'll just play a song. How about that? Let's play a little bit of everything for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the extra production quality was appreciated on that.
All right.
Fuck, that song is amazing. You know, we haven't talked about Greg Norton. He's got a great little bass fill at the beginning of that and just kind of carries it out. And, you know, Bob Mould, he talks about bass players with the same, Greg Norton with the same reverence that I jokingly hold bass players in my dialogue. So it's really too bad. But damn, what a great fucking tune, man.
I'll tell you what, to really appreciate Greg Norton, go watch any live show on YouTube of Husker Du, and you will appreciate Greg Norton. The guy was just boundless
Goddamn
energy
right.
and just jumping like crazy, and like he embodies what you think of when you think of punk rock from the 80s, yet he's playing these killer lines. He's not just playing root notes.
No,
Just impressive dude.
He's a very good player. And Kevin, are you familiar with a band called the Suicide Commandos? That's a local band.
I'm familiar with the name, but I have not heard them.
Okay. Their guitarist, Chris Osgood, was actually, Bob bought like a 45 of theirs back in Malone, New York, where he was from. And he was coming he'd already know he was coming to McAllister in St. Paul for college. And he saw like, cool, I go to St. Paul. Now there's a band I can see. He ended up getting guitar lessons from their guitar player, Chris Osgood. And he said after about, I don't know, half a dozen lessons, he's like, go on your own, you young man. You're free to fly. So he already must have known
Take the pebble from my hand.
Learning experience was, but it was definitely not like 6 lessons that I was like, well, I'm fucking great now. So he must have had some lessons ahead of that. But I thought I'd at least mention his name because he's important to the story of Husker Du.
Yeah, I had a jazz guy, so no, I did not get that. I went to a jazz instructor and I said, hey, can you teach me how to play balls to the wall on bass? That's really all I wanted to know.
I was very similar to me. I had some douchebag that probably eventually bought a karaoke machine and is still in Owatonna hosting karaoke night because he was the star. And he was like, I did like 3 lessons, and at the 3rd one, I'm like, you're not showing me anything that I'm even asking. You know what I mean? And you're just like, let's work on this scale one more time. And maybe he had a point. I don't know. Fuck him.
My sentiments about my teacher as well. He called my guitar a boat paddle. Because he had flown to Spain and bought his from this master luthier in Spain and blah, blah, blah. And yours, it's just a boat paddle. I'm just like, dude, I'm working 2 jobs to pay for this class, asshole. He would complain about my fingernails being dirty. Like, fuck you, man. I'm working construction in college. Kiss off.
Jesus.
Jeez.
Have either of you guys ever been asked to, like a friend said, hey, do you mind showing my kids something? Or
I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll show them.
I've been offered money, and I'm like, I'll tell you what, I won't take money. We'll set something up, and then like if they want to keep going, I'll give them some options, but I'm not a fucking teacher.
Yeah, same thing. I always tell somebody ask me that, I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, I'm self-taught. Basically, I took a couple of lessons and quit. So you really don't want me teaching anybody. I don't do it the right way.
I don't. Well, maybe we do though. It's like, well, here, what do you want to play? Well, here's how to play that. Now go home, do that a bunch of times, and we'll try it again next week. After that, you're on your own.
I want to see some calluses. I never get to that part. I was like, here's a chord. Come back next week and play that chord, 50 times. Nope. I didn't
play
practice.
that chord. Just go. Yeah, here's a bar chord. Let me teach you a bar chord, and you master that, and you go all the way up the frets. And you do that for 2 hours a day, and then come back.
No, they'd always come back. It hurt. I stopped. I'm like, nope, you're out.
And
you're holding the pick wrong.
Exactly.
Between my index finger and thumb, I'm doing it wrong.
I tell them the story. I was like, I was so poor in college, I had to make picks out of Cool Whip lids. That's how bad it was for me. Okay, now lesson's over.
All right.
I'm just here to complain.
Oh, man. So let's get back to the Husker doing, shall we? All right. So then we go March of '86. Their next album comes out on Warner Brothers. And this, if the last album was what I consider the blueprint for the 90s, this would be considered the first alternative rock album ever released. And it came out in '86. This to me is an alternative album.
It is, but it's not the first.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. What's the first then?
Throw down the gauntlet.
Well, shit. I mean, there's so much crap coming out around this time. You think this is like? I guess I don't know when did the Replacements sign there. I'm not, but it isn't just a Twin Cities thing. There was like, fuck. You know what? Let me get back to you, Kevin. You're much better on the spot than I.
I think it was Asylum. I think that was the first.
Whatever you got there. There was just definitely not like REM was out and doing their thing. We talked about.
Yeah, but they suck.
Yeah, but they suck. They don't count. They're
Yeah,
horrible.
but it's not about being good. It's about being first.
Our show.
And again, I
It's
think
about
the
being
replacements. They're
They were the first good alternative.
Tim. When did Tim come out? That was before this, right?
Wasn't it the same year?
Yeah, but the year's got 365 days, and
I
some
see
of them would come before others.
I see where you're going with this math.
Carry the two.
Yeah.
It was leap,
Anyway, I get your point.
it was a leap year, so
I
that
get
doesn't
your
count.
point. But we're going to call this the first alternative album.
But now I'm sort of conceding yours. Like, yeah, this might be. Fuck.
All right, so let's get into this album. Again, I didn't get into this album until later. Now, for you, so you discovered Husker on the last album. Did you get this current? Did you get this when it came out, or was it already out?
I did. It's very similar to a handful of my stories because, this is before the internet, before you know when records are coming out, all that good stuff. I actually just skateboarded up to the mall in Owatonna in the drugstore, and I'm like, hey, Husker Du, and they said the tip off was it was Warner Brothers logo. I'm like, oh, well, this is fucking new, and this might have been the very first cassette I ever owned. The Violent Femmes, that's the first one. Boom.
Here endeth the lesson.
This might have been the very first cassette I ever owned that was clear. Remember those clear plastic cassettes? How that was like a big thing. Like everything was white or that kind of like eggshell kind of thing. Mm-hmm. This one was clear. This might have been my very first clear cassette. I'm not positive about that, but I know it was in early on. But yeah, I was like, well, fuck it. Gonna use my paper route money to buy this fucking thing.
Awesome. So you didn't see the MTV video for "Don't Want to Know If You Are Lonely" first?
No, I never saw any of their videos until probably YouTube.
Yeah, I didn't either because we didn't have MTV in the God-fearing town that I'm from. They wouldn't allow MTV.
Oh, God.
That and dancing.
Me and Kevin Bacon, man, we had to go outside the town limit to do a little dance.
Tractor Chicken.
Tractor Chicken, yeah. That's super popular where I grew up too. I think that I remember being a little disappointed overall in this record compared to what I was listening to. I like it way more now than I did when it came out, and I didn't have a problem with it then. But I was just like, it's not Flippy Wig. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this one, Candy Apple Gray, is the one that is probably the last one I pull to listen to if I'm listening to Husker Du. It's not bad, but the other ones are better. Just
over Warehouse even, huh?
Yeah, because I have we'll get to that, but I've got kind of a love thing with Warehouse just because of when it came out. But so this is the first Husker Du album to chart on the Billboard Top 200, and because it had an MTV video and because they had a little bit of radio exposure thanks to being on Warner Brothers, it peaked at 140. They should have been huge because 140 is not the number they should have been.
At that time, that's basically like not charting it at all.
Exactly. I'm going to choose a tune to play. It's one of the ones you gave me, but I'm going to choose one that's a little more of Bob Mould's solo kind of vibe. This is like Husker Du showing you where Bob's going to go after Husker Du. But I absolutely love this song. And this is the reason I think that he's friends with Pete Townsend, because he writes songs like this. And I'm going to play Hardly Getting Over It from Candy Apple Gray.
To getting
I remember this song. Pretty sure it was this song as I was listening to their entire catalog a couple of years ago, just trying to familiarize myself with the band. Looking at my phone and going, okay, I think I've listened to everything, and they must have skipped to just Bob Mould solo stuff, and I was like, oh no, this is still the band. So
right,
this is what I was saying before. It's hard. It's a blur between.
Yeah, this could be Sugar. This could be Bob Mould.
Any of the above.
Yeah,
but it's still good.
So good. Something about his voice and just the way that he writes songs. I said earlier, he is friends with Pete Townsend. He's got this similar qualities to the songwriting. Just goes with his voice. Just goes with who he is. It just comes out, even if it's not that complex or it's just got this vibe to it. That's just him.
And when it's HÜSKER DÜ, the guitars and the voice are equally important to me. But when it comes just Bob Mould, it's just his voice, and that just stands out.
I've never put that together. I love that comparison with Pete Townsend, especially using this song as kind of a way to bridge that in. Yeah, and yeah, you got some pretty serious, topical stuff going on here, and I don't know. It's one of my favorite tunes on here.
Absolutely. All right,
Kevin, can I say something else before we switch to the next record?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Now, I assume some people listening to this show are hearing HÜSKER DÜ for the first time, and they should have been huge, and we want to at least encourage people like, hey, maybe you want to check them out. You have to play at least a snippet of I Don't Want to Know If You're Lonely. You're doing the band a disservice by going only obscure.
I almost played it.
A little bit.
Yeah, I almost played it, and then I thought, well, we'll talk about it. But you're right. I'm going to throw it in right here.
Give it just a little taste.
Just to know that you're
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's such an important song. I'm assuming that's the one you said that could have been, should have been.
Yeah, this is the closest thing they had to be. And this is the one that I think, like, it does have kind of a mass appeal.
So you're totally on board with Shoulda Been Huge. I knew it.
I knew it. Yeah, I'm right there with you, pal.
All right, so let's get to the sixth and final album. This was the one that was current when I saw their name on the cover of that Rip magazine, and I read about this band, even though I thought they looked like freaks, and I read about this album, and they were promoting it at the time. So 1987, this comes out. It's called Warehouse Songs and Stories. Now, while I didn't own any Husker Du at this time, there was this girl that was dating my
There's always a girl.
Yes, here we go. She happened to be dating my friend Connor, and but I, you can't help. Sometimes you like your buddy's girl.
Your eyes wander.
Yeah. And she had this cassette in her car, and I was going somewhere with her, and she was playing this. So I did hear Husker Du prior to me discovering them. Really was Zen Arcade, but at the time, that's not really where my head was. But I do remember thinking that she was just one of the coolest chicks I'd ever met, and I knew that she was listening to this album. So this album kind of holds a certain place for me.
Fondle memories.
Yes. So
fondle memories. Well played.
So when I did pick this up in the 90s.
Later when you were alone in your own room by yourself listening to this, having great times.
Yes. Most nights of my youth, yes. So anyway, that's...
You and me both, brother.
So that's why...
Check out the Hard 180 for more details about Bakko being alone.
And I definitely want to talk about Hard 180 when we get done with this.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. I was just making a jerk off. Okay.
No worries.
Shameless plugs are allowed.
Yeah, so let me just give you a little background on why this is the last album and where this band was at the time. So around this time, they're on Warner's, right? They've done pretty well with the last album considering their trajectory. And Bob decides to stop drinking. Apparently he was drinking and taking drugs from the time he was, like 11 years old. He always was drinking because that was part of his upbringing with his family. But he
drinking more than drugs is my understanding.
That's right. Yeah, he was,
everybody smoked a little pot,
Exactly.
Well, it's cold up there. You got to deal with it somehow.
Exactly. And I'm sure he still smokes a little pot, but he was more of a drinker, and he stopped drinking around this time. And Grant was going the other direction. Grant was getting further into heroin. So there was this drastic difference between them. They're writing songs still, and Grant's, because of the drug addiction and because of the money that's a little bit more money's coming in because of the Warner thing. He's saying, I want more songs on the next album. I want, he's rock starring it up a little bit, playing that whole scene out. Greg, on the other hand, moves out of the Twin Cities, I don't know, do you know where he goes, Bakko? He goes somewhere in the country.
Yeah, he moved to a place called Red Wing, which is, in about 20 years, it'll probably be considered a suburb, but it's about 45 minutes south for anybody that gives a crap. But yeah, anyway, carry on.
Yeah, well, my understanding is he just sort of like, I'm moving out there and I'm playing golf and, opening a record store and just doing his thing. And not really that into Husker Du at the time. So I don't even know that he's on this album that much. I think he hardly played on it from what I remember listening. I listened to the Bob Mould autobiography, but it's been a while. And I recall him saying he didn't think Greg was even on it very much.
Yeah, and look, depends on when you talk to Bob, but his attitude towards Greg, it goes from like just visceral hatred and disdain for this guy who just skated along and made a career off of me and Grant to a, hey, things were weird at that time. It was a long time ago, and so I don't know where the truth is. I know like Greg has a different story from almost everything Bob says, but yeah, it does sound like at least one thing we can say is that like, well, this was a very fractured record. One of the notes I made was like, who the fuck sequenced this? Because like, I don't even know how you do it. It's basically a Bob Mould solo album and a Grant Hart solo album, and it's damn near like A B A B A B all the way to the end.
Yep.
And it's just there's no flow to it at all, which is why I thought it was weird. But now that I hear your masturbatory story, I get why you'll like this better than Candy Apple Gray. And there's some good stuff on here, but this is the easily, in my opinion, the weakest album on here. But yeah, the band is falling apart,
Yeah, and to top it off, this thing's released in January of '87, right before the tours to start. Their manager, David Savoy, committed suicide, so Bob had to take over everything. So, like, their whole world was just crumbling. And, you know, Grant's heroin use, it got so bad that they tried to play the tour, and Bob just called it. He's like, we can't do this anymore because Grant couldn't even perform. And so they just called it. And by January of 88, a year later, they're done. And
by the way, way before, this is where grunge got the idea to do heroin and, you know, maybe kill yourself. So
yeah, this is what inspired all of the grunge artists. This thing peaked at 117 on the Billboard 200, charted for a week in the UK at number 72. But, you know, here again, not huge, not a big showing. They did have some, you know, high profile appearances on, they did The Late Show with Joan Rivers. Do you remember The Late Show with Joan Rivers?
Yeah, she was supposed to take over for Carson, and then blah, blah. She didn't get the job, so she made her own show.
I don't remember that. I don't
First
recall
time
that at all.
I saw Poison Live was on that show.
Oh, wow.
And it was as good as you would expect me to say it was.
Yeah.
They each started a different song at the same time.
Like the MTV one?
Yeah.
yeah. It was
4 different songs.
This is early though. This is the debut record. Look what the cat jerked in.
Yeah. Those chicks were hot.
You are a sexist pig.
Yeah, they were also on the Today Show, the morning show, which is weird. Husker Du on the Today Show.
Yeah, mornings are not made for punk rock.
It's bizarre. Well, they weren't punk. Remember, they were their first alternative band.
Yeah, that's right. Still.
The very first alternative rock band.
Any of those bands, first thing in the morning, it's just not the time to see them.
What do you think of the cover, Bakko, on this one?
I absolutely love it. You know, that's probably I like it better than the record.
This was also my favorite
cool.
T-shirt. I had in college. I had this album. I had this T-shirt.
Too busy for me for a T-shirt, you know. But
yeah, well, it looked good. It looked good on me because I think I wore it pretty much every day. I was that guy.
Kevin, everything looks good on you.
Well, this is true.
Chiseled physique.
I tell myself that every day.
As you should.
So I was into this. Like I said, I kind of went back into Husker Du really heavily in the 90s, and I was really into Sugar, so I was into all this stuff at the same time. And where were you with Sugar?
Absolutely love Sugar. I remember like the immediate response like that was like, fuck, this is kind of where Husker Du should have gone with their major label stuff.
Yep.
But again, this is more Bob kind of pursuing his own thing. And then, since we're talking on this, so you got Grant doing Nova Mob, right out of Husker Du, and then Grant did a handful of solo albums, while Bob did basically almost a very similar, like a condensed version of Husker Du. Like, well, I'm done with that, and now he's on to the next thing. And because he didn't have this like where he basically started Sugar, and then this is my deal. He can kill it whenever he wanted to. Or Husker Du, it was like a more complicated, ending. And then he's had a solo career basically since then and before that. And it's just, you see the effect, because I think Grant Hart, when I listen to the Husker Du stuff, I think he's as good, if not better, than Bob Mould as a songwriter. But you see where his career went after that, and basically there was some good stuff there, but it just seemed like it's more chaotic and not as tight. And I think that had to do more with the fact that he was a train wreck as a human being and a drug user than it did with anything else. Where Bob was basically a professional who could continue to kind of push it on. But yeah, but Sugar to me, those are it's 2 records and an EP, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, again, the hooky songs on that shit are fucking amazing. Maybe if we could hear your vocals, Bob, that could have been huge, but
well, real quick, what you were saying about Grant, I think that's spot on. The whole reason that Bob said the band is done obviously was because of Grant's performance, but then he goes and tries to kind of patch things up, and he goes to Grant's house. My understanding from the book, he goes to his house, his parents' house, where he's staying, and to your point, he's just so fucked up and not able to even think straight that Bob's sitting at his parents' kitchen table and just goes, you know what, this is never going to work, and just walks out. And that was the end of Husker Du in his parents' kitchen.
Yeah, and then they never figured it out after that. Imagine how much, like, nowadays we all love a great reunion, but I think Grant, passed, before that was, well, that's not necessarily true. It was like 2018.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it was ever going to happen. I think Bob, once he did his solo thing and then Sugar and then back to a solo thing, he found what he liked.
Yeah, and he said in another interview I was listening to that you ask anybody, when I move on, I move on.
Yeah.
And he said it like that guy I just did, where he kind of chuckled at at the end. It's like, when I'm done with something, I'm fucking done.
All right, well, let's hear a song from the last album, Warehouse Songs of Stories. The first one I think of, and it's one that you picked, is Ice Cold Ice.
They do it so damn well, that fine line.
Yeah.
Hard driving rock, little bit of punk edge to it, punk qualities. I know they put a little more time into writing this than the 10-minute van ride to the studio that they used to do. So I appreciate that. But there's just something. There's the quality of the guitar work and the voices together that's so unique. Now I can spot it a mile away if I hear that playing somewhere.
Yeah, they may not have been getting along, but man, they sound good together.
Yeah, you put that energy of the frustration of dealing with those kind of personalities and to just put it into the music.
I think a lot of times, like when you have that kind of like not getting along thing, but you're working together, you almost kind of want to outdo the other person, So if you have something to contribute to something, that's there. And Kevin, as much as I say like this isn't my favorite HÜSKER DÜ record, I think it's my least favorite. This is definitely top 10, if not top 5 songs by HÜSKER DÜ.
Definitely a standout song in their catalog for sure. I remember in the 90s they released a live album. I don't know if you got The Living End was the name of the album. It was from this tour. I've
never actually bought it, but I know what you're talking about.
It's not good. It's the sound. You think the sound quality is bad on their early albums? You should listen to that thing. It's just shit. It's just all reverb.
Recorded with a boombox.
It was just. I mean, so much echo and reverb that you can't tell what's going on. But still, this song, even though the recording's that bad, when this song's played on that live album, it still just shines above everything.
Have you ever seen the version of Bob's current band playing it, and Dave Grohl is with them, and he plays guitar, but he sings the Grant Hart part, the Eyes Cold Eyes?
No, I haven't seen that. But you know what?
On YouTube, people.
You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put it right here.
Bing.
Okay.
He's that good, just that fast. He found it,
just like that.
Mixed it, put it in there.
Man,
it was really good. I
You're
enjoyed
on top
it.
of your game, Kevin.
Dave Grohl's awesome. He can do no wrong. He's dreamy.
Well, that wraps up the 6-album discography. The very short span of time that HÜSKER DÜ existed. I think they should have been bigger than they were, but
that's not the name of the show.
They should have been huge.
There you go. Don't sandbag us, man. Come on.
Change what? Come up with what is what language is in Obscuria? What would you say that is?
Swahili.
Swahili. Yeah.
So come up with the version of that for should have been huge.
It should have been hugia.
We'll come up with something.
Let me woodshed that. Yeah, I got to work on that.
Yeah, workshop that a little. So you mentioned it already. Grant died in 2017, liver cancer, unfortunately. So we don't have an opportunity to see this band ever.
No. I saw Grant one time at a place called the Turf Club in St. Paul. I've seen Bob Mould, I want to say 3 or 4 times solo. And then I've never seen any of what's Greg Norton's current thing. Ultra Bomb?
Ultra Bomb. They're really good. Yeah, really good. It's a trio.
So I've been thinking about reaching out to him to have him on the show because he's still local. He opened a restaurant in Red Wing where he moved to, but this was definitely years after HÜSKER DÜ. He actually bought a restaurant and then the cook quit, and then he had a friend who taught him how to cook, and he became a chef. Now I believe that restaurant is no
looks
longer
like a chef.
around. Yeah, he does. Yeah. He plays the part well, and he had his own health scare somewhat recently, but I think he's come out of it. But I think COVID or somewhere before that, he might have been a COVID casualty restaurant, but I don't believe it's still going. As a foodie, I feel bad that I didn't make it down to fucking Greg Norton's goddamn restaurant, especially if he was going to cook my fucking food
name.
like a bitch.
Chef Norton, man, that's pretty awesome.
And Kevin, I don't know where you wanted to go with this, but could I mention a few? If people are interested in the band, obviously you can go to any streaming source and find most of their catalog. But there's a couple other things that like can tell you the story of them and maybe a little bit of the Twin Cities music scene that I'd like to share, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, first of all, Bob Mould's book, See a Little Light. You mentioned that you listened to the audio version of it. Does he read it, by the way?
He does. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Okay.
But you know what you have to do is...
So, yeah.
Let me just tell people real quick. If you want to listen to Bob Mould read his autobiography, 1.5 speed.
Okay.
He's a little drawn out sometimes, so just 1.5 speed. It'll be good.
I would recommend taking a break from the digital world, pick up a hard copy of the book, and just sit somewhere and read for a bit. There's also another great book called HÜSKER DÜ, the story of noise pop pioneers who launched modern rock, written by a guy named Andrew Earls. This is a oral biography where it just means a bunch of people contribute to it. If you happen to track one down, it comes with this cool sticker, What Would Husker Do?
Nice.
But this is a first-hand account told by it basically follows the timeline, but you have people from the scene plus the members of the band kind of sharing their stories, and this is where you get some of the contradictory versions of what they're doing. And then beyond that, you mentioned the PBS documentary Hardcore Minnesota, or Minnesota Hardcore. It talks about the scene in general, but there's a big 20-minute chunk that's just dedicated to Husker Du that you can find on YouTube. There's also a fabulous documentary about a place called Jay's Longhorn, which is a bar that's no longer here, but very much catered to the punk rock scene of the late 70s, early 90s here in Minneapolis. And there was a record store release that you can stream, and I believe this might have not been a Record Store Day exclusive. You might be able to find a vinyl or CD copy of this thing. Like, I'm holding it up like people can fucking see what I'm talking about. It's called Tonight Longhorn, and this is recorded. This is several shows from 79, 80, 80, and 80. So there's 4 different shows on here. So I think it's a very fun listen for a Husker fan.
I think it's on Bandcamp, actually. I think you can go pick up a copy on Bandcamp.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, and it definitely, I know for a fact you can stream it too for people who like that. So those are things that I would get into as well. But there's also, because it isn't just about Husker Du, there's a replacements book called Trouble Boys written by a guy named Bob Mayer. I'm pulling it out of my head, but that's a great book if you want to know more about this scene and kind of everything. And there's some Husker stories in there as well. I would absolutely love to come back and do a replacements episode if you ever get the urge to do that, guys.
We should do that.
But,
yes.
But we'd have to be completely drunk, because that's the only way you can do replacements.
And we would have to basically bail before we get to the end.
Say no more. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, those are the things I wanted to mention for anybody that's interested. Anybody has a hard time tracking down either of those documentaries, just reach out to me. I'll let you know. The books are easy to find anywhere. So.
Just give out your phone number right here.
Yeah, go ahead and put it right here. Yeah.
It's
Speaking of finding things, where can people find you? I mean, obviously, Cobras and Fire, you're out there, but just let the people know a little bit about Cobras and Fire.
Well, cobrasandfire.com is a place to go. Cobras and Fire, we call ourselves an irreverent comedy rock talk show. We've had a lot of interviews over the years. Anybody from, I always love talking about Jake Lee, but he's my boy.
That was a great interview.
We've had Rob Halford. We've also had, thank you very much. But yeah, we do a lot of stuff. We talk about, basically, we try to feature new rock bands that we can, when we find them, but as we've gotten 9 years deep, it's a little hard to make it only about that. Coming up on 10 years, by the way, I think in April.
Wow. Damn.
But
congrats, man.
Yeah.
So anywhere that you can find this podcast, you should be able to find us as well. Cobras and Fire Podcast. And then, of course, I've done a couple let's just call it, what the sidecast is the term that gets thrown around. I did a grunge one called Whatever Never Mind, which you can also find in the Cobras and Fire feed. And that's basically breaking down, according to Rolling Stone, the 25 most essential records of grunge, which inspired me to create my own curated list, which, Kevin, you were kind enough to be part of, for a show I'm calling the Hard 180, which we are getting close to wrapping up. A few months. I think it ends in March. But we counted down the 100 most essential albums of the 1980s. Hair metal scene, I should say specifically.
Yes, specifically, so Kevin, hair metal.
You gave me a list, and that was part of it. And it's basically, I think there's 42 or 43. I break it down as I go. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun to do that. And so we're into the top 10. I believe number 8 is out as we speak, which was Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. But yeah, check that out if you like hair metal. And then, yeah, how about that? That's plenty of plugging, right?
No, it's great. I just want to mention back to the grunge sidecast that you did. I happened to be on one of those, so thank you very much for letting me do. I believe it was number 2, Soundgarden. And Bad Motor Finger we did. Well, Bakko, it has been a long time coming. We've had your co-host on the program to talk Danko Jones. I thought it was only appropriate we should get you on here to talk a little bit of HÜSKER DÜ and a little bit of Minnesota Twin City rock.
And soon to be replacements. We'll definitely do this again.
Nice.
You know, I told you before, but if not for shows like yours, we wouldn't even exist. So thank you you said you're coming up on 10 years. Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for always entertaining us. And thank you so much for your friendship that, you know, we've over the years with Rock and Pod and with other events that we've seen each other. Just really appreciate spending time with you. And it's always fun.
Amen to that.
Absolutely.
You make Keel Fest bearable.
Everybody's such a dick about Keel Fest. Look, right back at you guys. You know I love both of you, man, and yeah, that the friendship is it's just fun to make new friends in your late 40s and early 50s. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it doesn't happen often, right?
And Robert, when are you going to send me the recipe to build my own flamethrower? I'm still upset about that right now.
I'm still waiting for the lawyers to figure out the liability on that. You can come just take pictures of any one of the ones in my collection and just, you know, copy it from the pictures if you want to.
We were going to have all of you guys down here. We were going to do something with a bunch of podcasters, and then he goes and buys a church and he spends all his time on that.
Oops. I wasn't paying attention.
He bought a church. You're laughing. He bought a church. It's right next door.
I seen the post.
Okay.
Now, I got to tell you, like, I first met Robert, and, you know, he comes off the way he comes off when you first meet him, right? And then by, like, I think it was the last time we met at Rock and Pot, it was like the layers of the onion just peel and peel away, and it's like, okay, I had no idea what I was cracking with this egg. So yeah, kudos to you, Robert. You're a fascinating and beautiful human being. You make the world a better place.
He is the world's most interesting man.
You know, I've got to keep up
right.
with. I got to make up for my lack of encyclopedic knowledge, like Kevin has. So I got to do something just balance that out.
That's the nicest way of saying I'm a nerd. I appreciate that, man.
I've said that.
I can relate though, man. Like, well, you heard me call Grant Hart Grant Hill. So fuck it. I'm with you, Robert. I say steer into it.
Okay.
Boom.
Thank you.
And with that, we're gonna get out of here. So thank you very much. We will talk to you soon, I'm sure. And that's it, people. Until next time.
Later. Actually, if you're hearing this, it's already come out.
Oh, that's going at the end.